Well, joining me now to respond to that is Israel's ambassador to the United Nations, Danny Danon. Ambassador, thank you very much indeed for coming back on Uncensored. I just had a very passionate plea from Ambassador Bamya on behalf of the Palestinians at the UN to allow Palestinians ultimately to have the same human rights as Israelis and to have statehood that goes with that. What is intrinsically wrong with that? Why shouldn't they?
Well, you know, I'm familiar with the shows of Mr. Bamya. I'm seeing him at the UN almost every week. But let's talk about the facts. The facts are that, you know, we left Gaza 20 years ago, Piers, completely. We uprooted the settlement, so-called. We took out the military, even the cemeteries. And we told the people there, build your future. You know, the PA was in charge, and they had a chance to build a future. What happened? Hamas took over and built a terror entity in our backyard. And we saw what happened on October 7th. So they shouldn't blame Israel for what happened. They have to realize that in order for them to have a better future, they have to face the radicals and to fight them. And they are not capable of doing it. You know, leave Gaza now. Let's speak about Judea and Samaria, where you have the Palestinian Authority in charge today. They are not capable of fighting terrorists. You know, in cities like Jenin, Nablus, and even Ramallah, you know, they have a lot of troops, a lot of funding, but they are not capable to stand up and push back against radicals. But when that day will come, that they will be able to fight radicals, they can speak about a better future. Until that day will happen, we will have to be there, neutralize the threat, exactly like what we are doing now in Gaza.
But what many people say, including some of your closest allies in the world, is that you've gone way beyond any proportionate act of self-defense in Gaza, that you are now waging what many people believe is either a genocide or an ethnic cleansing. You now have openly members of the Israeli government, Smotrich and Ben-Gvir in particular, who are detailing in a gleeful manner their plan to take charge and control of the West Bank, of the Gaza Strip, to remove all Palestinians. This is ethnic cleansing they're talking about. It's not even ambiguous. They're not even trying to hide it. So what do you say to that, Ambassador?
You raised a lot of issues. Let me answer all of them. First, you know, don't look at the words of ministers or members of Knesset. Look at the decision of the Israeli cabinet. That's how it works in our democracy. The cabinet decides about the goal of the operation, and the military moves forward or backward. That's regarding the statements. Second, regarding the claim for genocide, you know, and ethnic cleansing, that's blah, blah, blah. Those are lies. It's a campaign of lies. You know, I face it every day at the UN. Yesterday, you interviewed Mr. Tom Fletcher. You know, he spread a lie that we killed 14,000 Palestinian babies out of nowhere. The agency, OCHA, that he heads, put a number of casualties of Palestinian civilians, and a day after, they put a different number and reduced it by 10,000 people. Not 100, not 1,000, 10,000. And look what happened with the New York Times, you know, with the horrible campaign they had with this poor Palestinian boy who was sick, and they said he was starving to death. So there is a campaign of lies against Israel. But when you speak about proportionality, I have to ask you, what should we do to bring the hostages back? You know, the reason we started this war because we were invaded and Israelis were kidnapped from their homes. We have a commitment to bring them back home. This war will not end with 50 hostages in Gaza. Even if the UN will vote about resolutions against Israel and more countries will say that they want to recognize a Palestinian state in the future, it will not change our determination to bring all of them back home to their families.
But this is the whole problem. Your strategy simply isn't working. The last hostage came back in February. Since then, you've launched a 3-month blockade of the Gaza Strip, which involved removing any ability to bring in food or aid or water, starving people in a way that is a war crime by most people's understanding of that. You've now allowed a minimal amount of food to be going in after a huge international outcry. You say that one child the New York Times put on the front page wasn't starving. He clearly was starving. He just had other medical issues going on as well. And there are, we know from all the imagery, well, you can shake your head, but there are, as you know, many images coming out of Gaza.
Let's speak about the New York Times.
Well, hang on, let me finish. let me finish. I'll let you finish. That there are many, many images coming out of Gaza of starving children. We're not making this up. And if you really believe it's not happening and all of this is a blood libel, then again, and I've had this conversation with you before, you should be pressurizing your prime minister to allow international media to go into Gaza to verify exactly what is happening. But, you know, I want to play you a clip. This is from the BBC. Oh, hang on. I want to play you a clip from Jeremy Bowen.
You're spreading so many lies.
Hang on one second. Ambassador, with respect, I will let you respond. I will let you respond. But I will let you respond, but let me just play one clip to you of the BBC's Middle East editor, Jeremy Bowen, who's reported from every war zone in the last 25, 30 years. Here's what he reported for the BBC.
So the Jordanians have passed on a message from the Israelis. The Israelis don't want us to film out of the window at the devastation inside Gaza. But I've spent 10 minutes looking at it with my own eyes. And I can tell you that communities in the north of Gaza that I knew well, very vibrant, tens of thousands of people living hard lives, but actually with a remarkable human spirit, are flat. There's nothing left of them.
Now, that's the truth, isn't it, Ambassador? You don't want journalists to go in there because what they're going to uncover and report to the world is utterly horrifying. You have destroyed 2/3, if not more now, of the Gaza Strip. You've displaced 2 million people into a very small area of the Strip. And you now have ministers who you say we shouldn't take seriously, but whose views are never publicly corrected or condemned by Prime Minister Netanyahu. So Smotrich and Ben-Gvir talk openly now about a plan to remove all Palestinians from the Gaza Strip and from the West Bank. And you simply say, as the ambassador, well, you shouldn't take them seriously. Why shouldn't we?
Yes,
why shouldn't we? I've not heard Netanyahu. Netanyahu doesn't say what they're saying is wrong.
Keep going. You know, if that's an interview, keep going. For 6 minutes now.
No, now you can respond.
You're showing movies.
I'm not spreading lies.
Wait, if I would have to respond, you know, each allegation, it would take us 15 minutes now. So when you say a lie,
tell me the lie.
You spoke about the New York Times picture. Let's speak about that for a minute. That was blood libel. When you put a picture of a sick Palestinian boy who has a disease and you claim that he was starving, that was a lie. And by the way, they retracted that. But the way they retracted it was also shameful. They put it in a small page on their Twitter with 89,000
But to be clear, I said that other children were starving. I said other children were starving. Do you deny that?
You said that this boy was also starving. You want to rewind it 2 minutes ago?
The boy is clearly.
He was also starving.
The boy is clearly. The boy was clearly. The boy was clearly emaciated, Ambassador. Clearly emaciated. So yes, he has a medical condition, but also he's clearly not eating, right?
No,
so
that's
why deny what we see with our own eyes?
So look at his brother when you can see in the picture that his brother is well fed and he has no issues with the family. But this boy, because
this boy is not eating, right? So, fine. But is your position, to be clear, that are you saying no children are starving in Gaza? Is that your position?
I'm telling you that there is no starvation in Gaza. There is a starvation campaign, a very successful one, by the way. And this campaign is that.
Well, Donald Trump believes there's a starvation.
Wait, let me finish. With all due respect, with this campaign, that is the reason you don't have a ceasefire now. Because Hamas believes that because now they get the support of the international community, all of a sudden they don't need to negotiate with Israel because aid is coming in. They can take over the aid again, and we can speak about what's happened with the UN not picking up the aid because of Hamas. They will not tell you that, but you have aid inside Gaza that the UN is not capable of distributing it. But it's easier to blame Israel. So for Hamas now, they make a mistake. They think they shouldn't negotiate with us. But I tell you that we will not stop this war with the hostages in Gaza, regardless of what you're going to say, regardless of the blood libel we saw at the New York Times and other media outlets. We know it's a campaign, but this campaign will not change our determination to bring them home. We will not leave them in the tunnels, regardless of all those lies and all those declarations.
Do you accept that if there is an attempt to move the Palestinian population out of Gaza completely, that would represent ethnic cleansing and a war crime? Do you accept that in principle?
Absolutely not. I think President Trump put it forward, and he said that it should require consent. If somebody in Gaza wants to move now to a different place, he should be allowed to do it. Nobody should force him. But if he wants to move
and what
out,
if they don't want to? What if it's involuntary?
If you want to move now from London to New York, or from New York to London, you can do that. You can apply for a student visa.
I'm asking about if it's involuntary.
No,
what if it's involuntary?
No, absolutely not. I'm talking about consent from both sides. Consent of the
but if there's no consent, do you accept if there is no consent from the Palestinian people to be moved, displaced out of Gaza?
Absolutely.
Let me finish my question. Ambassador, let me ask you a precise question so the viewers can understand. If it is done without their consent, in other words, they are forcefully displaced out of Gaza, out of the West Bank, would you accept that is ethnic cleansing and a war crime if that is what happens?
No one is speaking about that. That is something which is not acceptable.
They are. Smotrich and Ben-Gvir are literally talking about that.
No one
They're
is speaking about...
They're two senior members of your government.
No one is speaking
about...
They
are literally speaking about it, Ambassador. With respect, they are literally... that is what they're speaking about.
I'm a representative of the Israeli government, and I'm telling you, and you can look at the protocols of all the debates in the government and the cabinet. It was never discussed. It's not on the table. And also President Trump's vision was about offering a possibility for people to relocate. It happened in Ukraine. It happened in different areas in the world when people wanted to move to a different place. If they want to do it, and by the way, they can come back afterward if they want to. But why only the people in Gaza are not being allowed to even think about a future in a different place? Why, if they want to live in one of the Arab countries, or if they want to come to the US or to Europe, why not even giving them the option to discuss it? Why you say, no, you have to stay there for eternity, when all other citizens of the world are allowed to think about a future in a different place?
Okay, well, why don't Israelis move out of Israel then and let the Gazans go and live there?
Well, Israelis, if they want to move, they can move. And the people of Gaza, if they want to find a different future, they should be allowed to do that. But I think you touched a point. I think some people in Gaza, the radicals, they don't want a better future. They don't care about the future of their children. They care about eliminating Israel. And that is the core of the problem. It's not about where they live and how they live. It's about, the fact that some elements in Gaza, the radicals one, don't want to see the existence of Israel, period. Read the constitution of Hamas. Read what the muwakama, the resistance for the jihadic means. That's the essence of their existence. And even today, when there are negotiations offering them to go to exile, to live a very good life in different countries in the Middle East, you know what they say? We don't want to live in a different place. We want to stay in Gaza and to fight the jihad against Israel. That is the main problem. If you look to what happened in the last 20 years, how many billions of dollars were invested in Gaza by the UN, by the US, by the EU, and that money wasn't used to build a better society, a better future. It was used to build hate and weapons of mass destruction against Israel.
The biggest problem, it seems to me, Thomas Friedman, the New York Times columnist, wrote a great column today in which he said the reality of what is happening now in this war is that you have the worst Palestinian leadership ever with Hamas, and you have the worst, most far right-wing Israeli government ever as well. In other words, you have the worst of the worst leading both sides in this war, both of whom now appear increasingly wedded to the destruction of the other. And the victims in all this are the Israeli citizens and the Palestinian citizens who are not members of Hamas, or the Israelis who are not signed up to this worldview expressed by Gvir and Smotrich of getting rid of all Palestinians. That is not what most Israelis actually want, I don't believe. Maybe they do. I don't believe they want a form of ethnic cleansing. What they want is to try and get a solution and peace, but there is no will for peace. There's no will on the Israeli government side to bring this to an end. Because the moment it ends, Netanyahu gets held accountable for what happened October the 7th, and he has to be back in a criminal court facing corruption charges. He has no incentive to end it. Hamas have no incentive to end it either. They just want to keep killing as many Jews as they can possibly kill. I don't make any pretense that that's what they want to do. But you have the worst of the worst leaders on both sides now in an implacable war which shows no sign of ending, and neither side wants it to end. And that is the absolute tragedy about what is happening now in Gaza.
Piers, it's a shameful comparison. You know, how dare Thomas Friedman equate the Prime Minister of Israel, who was elected by the people of Israel, to the Hamas regime. You know, we have a democracy. We have elections. Prime Minister Netanyahu was elected. Hamas took over control over Gaza, and there was no elections there, and they actually shoot the opposition there. So to make that comparison, it's shameful. It's shameful, and you know that, you know, Prime Minister Netanyahu, and you can say a lot of things about him, but he always tried to delay conflicts and to avoid wars. But this war was brought upon us, and he had no choice to defend Israel and to fight to bring the hostages back. That is his responsibility. He was elected to protect the people of Israel. If somebody comes and kidnaps innocent Israelis, we expect the leader of the country to bring them back. That is duty. And that's what he's doing now, representing the people of Israel. So I think any comparison between Netanyahu and Hamas is not acceptable.
Well, let's remind people that Benjamin Netanyahu actively supported funding Hamas to the tune of billions of dollars. He wanted to create a divide and rule with the Palestinian Authority. He thought that would make Israel more secure. In fact, it had the opposite effect. It's made Israel far less secure, as has this relentless bombardment and destruction of Gaza, the killing of more than 60,000 Palestinians, 20,000 plus children. None of this has made Israel safer. It's made it more dangerous to be an Israeli. It's made it more dangerous to be a Jew living around the world. And as somebody who has always supported Israel and has many Israeli and Jewish friends, I speak as a friend when I say, end this madness. This is completely insane. The rest of the world is now looking at Israel utterly aghast, even your closest allies, even your friends, even your supporters. And they're saying, when is enough enough? This has to stop. And I just don't understand why, and I've interviewed you many times. I've always found you a very respectful person to interview, and I appreciate you coming back on. But I cannot believe that you don't wake up in the morning now and see the clarity of how incredibly unpopular this war strategy is now making Israel, and that also it's not achieving its aims. You're not getting the hostages released. You're not beating Hamas because they're still operating and holding you to ransom with the hostages. None of this is working. All you're doing is apparently doing exactly what Smotrich and Ben-Gvir have articulated is the real plan, which is getting the Palestinians out of Gaza. And if you do that, then Israel will be hated for the rest of my life. And that's just a reality. And I don't get it. I don't know why the sensible Israelis are not speaking up and saying, enough of this. We're not being held ransom by this hard right government anymore, doing this crap in our names.
Well, on October 7th, Piers, I was in Israel. I was a member of the coalition of the government of Netanyahu. And I can tell you that if we wanted to evacuate the people of Gaza, we would have done it by now. Believe me, we had the capabilities. It wasn't the decision of the government. And you looked at the way we operated in Gaza, when 900 Israeli soldiers died during the operation, is because we have to maneuver in a very careful manner in order to minimize civilian casualties. That's why this war is so difficult for us, and it's so long. It's the longest war in our history, and the price is heavy price. But I have to tell you one thing. Today, there's a different situation. You know, despite everything you said, that, you know, we are being condemned, but I think the threat of Hamas today is not the same threat we had on October 7th. The threat of Hezbollah is not the same, and the threat of Iran is not the same. So yes, we change things, but we have to finish the job. And finishing the job is the day when the hostages will be back home. We have to realize that. You know, how can you explain to the families of those people after 2 years that we concluded the military operation and we left the hostages behind? I cannot explain that. No one can explain that.
Ambassador Dunham, like I say, I appreciate you coming back on Uncensored. You come on regularly. I do appreciate that and hearing your perspective. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.